There's a huge shift in the world right now, and many people are living in fear. It's time for that to change. Hi, I'm Tara. I'm your host and guide, and I invite you to take this journey with me as we discover new ways to embrace more love, more celebration, and embrace ourselves, body, mind, and soul, letting go of the fear in the seen and the unseen world, and embracing your power. Welcome to my show, Fearless Spirit. Hello, welcome back to Fearless Spirit. My name is Tara. I am your guide and host for this show, and I'm super excited because today I actually have a guest on my show. She is a dear friend and colleague and is a woman who's collaborating with me at this time for some amazing projects. And I just love what she does, who she is, and I could not wait to get her on this show for you all. So welcome everyone, Heather Wilson. And Heather, I would love for you to actually introduce yourself and just kind of let the audience know who you are, what you do, what your background is, whatever you feel like you want to share.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited and honored to be on your Fearless Spirit podcast because I love you and really admire you and the medicine that you're bringing into the world. So, like you said, my name is Heather, and I'm an Astro-Ancestral Healing guide, a trauma-informed leadership mentor, and also an embodied empowerment guide and intuitive channel. And so my maternal ancestors are from the islands of Leyte, Samar, and Panay, which are the Visayan Islands, in which is now known as the Philippines. And then on my paternal side, I have ancestors from Nigeria and Ghana, and then like a few other countries, other areas in West Africa. But it's my ancestry is primarily Nigerian and Ghanaian. And then I also have paternal ancestors from the British Isles of Northern Europe. So the reason I mention my ancestors is because I am walking the path of dissolving intergenerational patterns on both sides of my multiracial family and becoming a responsible steward of my ancestral spiritual wisdom and indigenous traditions. And the way I do that is through my membership, which is called the Astro-Ancestral Healing Collective. And I came up with this idea to create this sacred space over a year ago, and it's been so wonderful. So the space is designed to support and empower other female-bodied cycle breakers and cycle starters to alchemize deep ancestral wounds into creative potential, embodied joy, and shifts to higher consciousness using pleasure and astrology as transformative medicine. So that's one way that I'm, living out my purpose. And then I do diversity, equity, inclusion consulting. So I just finished a contract with the Orange County Transportation Authority. I did like over 20 trainings with them on how to create an inclusive and engaging workplace, which was really fun because it was like my first time doing trainings in person. I've been doing so much online really since the pandemic. So it was cool to like dress up and get in my car and go someplace and be in a room with people live because it's just way more fun. It's way more interactive. I have a better sense of what's going on energetically. So that was really wonderful. But that contract is over. But I would love to do more of that because I just like being around new people. I like meeting new people. And I get to do a lot of storytelling within the curriculum. Like I have a presentation that I'm supposed to give and facilitate, but I weave a lot of different stories into the training because it's so who I am, being a person with a multiracial background and having to uh, process and alchemize a lot of racial identity trauma ancestral trauma. Like this is in my bones. This is in my body to like speak about diversity and inclusion and equity. So it's interesting. It's like I don't say like by day I'm a, corporate, diversity and inclusion trainer, and by night I'm like a life path astrology reader. Like I'm doing the same thing is what I've realized. I am just using different languaging depending on the environment that I'm in, and also um meeting people where they are. So yeah, I'm also a certified life path astrology reader. So yeah, it's all the same. It's just like I'm changing my words, you know, but it's all the same. So yeah, that's me. That's what I'm doing, and I'm here on Tongva Chumash territory, also known as Venice Beach, California.
I love that intro. And I just want to say for everyone who's listening that, yeah, this is all the things that Heather is. I've known you since 2016. That's when we met.
Oh
And I've
gosh.
just watched you become even more just in your embodied, more in your power, more just, and just deeply just beginning to live your gifts, right? Living to just really owning who you are as a person and as a professional. And I just want to share with the audience too, like a lot of the things that you talk about, you and I have deep, heartfelt conversations around. A lot of things that you are and the passion you have is not, like you said, you don't do it for a living. You're doing it as your life. And so I've actually learned so much from you just being your friend and colleague. So I really appreciate you so much. That's why you're my first guest. Um, but the biggest thing too is really how beautiful you do combine those two things. So I'm really curious because I know your journey personally on why you started to really deconstruct and decolonize your life. And I wanted to touch on that in a moment, but really I wanted to ask too, what is different? Because I know what's different. I've experienced it myself. You did my natal chart and then you did a progressive chart reading, which blew my mind and completely changed the trajectory. I mean, this podcast wouldn't be happening without that reading, to be honest,
Aw.
because that completely just went and put me on my path. Like all the missing puzzle pieces just showed up and clicked into place. So it's really powerful for anyone who's listening. And I will be posting for Heather how to get in touch with her on the show notes so that you can definitely book a session with her if you so choose. So explain for the audience, because I know a lot of people love to dive in. I hear so much from people about the different things of astrology, and most people aren't really astrologers, so they're just going off of what they know. Can you explain for the audience what is really unique about life path astrology versus just general astrology? Because I know I experience how different it is just getting your readings, but I can't put it into words myself because for some reason, this is the only subject that does not stick in my mind. Maybe it's because you're my friend. But if you can explain for the rest of everyone why that is a little different, why it actually is more serving as living as a principle for your life, and really for you, how it did blend beautifully with doing a lot of your ancestral trauma healing.
Thank you for that question. And by the way, I'm really excited to be collaborating with you too. And yeah, it's just a dream come true because it's so harmonious and generative and easy and fun, and it's so aligned. So,
Yes, so
I'm
is.
learning from you, you're learning from me. Like it's just a really beautiful flow of energy, like such a beautiful energetic exchange. So, okay. Well, speaking of energy, um I would say that I have been dabbling in astrology, since I was a teenager, looking at the Linda Goodman books, right? The love signs books, the astrology book, the birthday book. Like I was always drawn to astrology, but I didn't really start studying it seriously until the pandemic. And I was called back to the East Coast in March of 2020 because my dad got really sick and his colon basically almost exploded. He had been suffering from colitis for many, many years, and he's a doctor, okay? And they can be the worst patients. So he got really sick, and thank God they were able to, get him in surgery and, save him from dying. But I had to stay um to help my mom take care of him. And then the pandemic happened, right? And so I was like, I'm not going back to LA. I'm going to stay in this house with my parents who are like almost 80 years old. And it was just a very scary time, right? Nobody really knew what was happening like in the very beginning. So, you know, it, I was caregiving for my dad and I was like, what am I going to do with myself? Like while I am here, like I'm not facilitating women of color healing circles in person anymore, right? I was doing all these like live events, couldn't do live events anymore. Um, I decided, okay, you know what? This Life Path Astrology certification, it kept on like coming into my field and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So um my friend Angel Quintana, this is her a methodology that she developed. So I became a Life Path Astrology Reader in 2020, and it is a fifth dimensional philosophy that uses your astrological birth chart to better understand um, the soul contracts that we came here to close in this lifetime, the karmic debts that need to be paid, and also it helps you identify the challenges one must overcome to evolve the soul and raise the frequency of the planet. And so this methodology is born out of traditional Western astrology. And like I said, this methodology was developed by Angel Quintana, and she's the founder of Sacred Anarchy and what used to be known as Holistic Fashionista. So it's always important to talk about your teachers. Um, so I'm trained in life path astrology, but I'm also very much influenced by evolutionary astrology. And my approach to this practice is really about spiritual advancement and energetics. And so the way I view astrology is that it's a tool, it's not the rule. And throughout my own ancestral healing journey, it's provided an incredible language and framework for understanding myself as an energetic being and empowering me to dissolve intergenerational patterns on both sides of my multiracial family. So, yeah, that's why I love, you know, Western astrology, it comes from ancient Greece. And so, whenever I give somebody a reading, I have to really make them aware of that because Greek society was very patriarchal, right? And so all of the concepts are based on their perceptions at that time of like who was worthy of belonging and who wasn't, right? It's like very much through that lens. And what I love about life path astrology is that it translates a lot of the 3D ideas that are still embedded in astrology into 5D, right? Which is, unity consciousness. Like 3D is still like separation consciousness. And looking at somebody, across the room who's offending you for whatever reason, triggering you for, whatever reason, you're like, oh my God, like judging them and being like, that's not me. That's gross. But in the
Mm-hmm.
5D, it's like a totally different way of being in the world. It's like, oh my God, you are me. Like you are a message from spirit to show me something within me that is coming up to be healed, right? So
Yeah.
you are my teacher, right? So it's a totally different mindset. It's a different level of consciousness. And my pre-colonial ancestors from the Philippines would refer to the 5D as Pakiki Pagkapwa. And it's like a very long word and it's hard to pronounce, but basically they were animists. They practiced animism. So they believed, just like very simply, that everything was alive, everything had consciousness. So that's another way of thinking about the 5D. And also, people will call the 5D the age of Aquarius. So that's like life path astrology in a nutshell. But like I said, I'm influenced by different schools of astrology too.
I really love to, one of the things you said is remembering that the initial astrology, and I bring this up because I think this is important even in our modern day spirituality in general, right? Is how we have to remember that the things that we are learning from, and I say in quotations, ancient times, times that we have record of anyway, it comes from a time when that that era or that society was also creating these practices through the lens of their own lived experiences.
Yeah.
So really acknowledging that I think is really powerful because even now in spiritual world, some of the things that come to light for both yourself and myself, even when I'm channeling, is sometimes mind blowing because it goes against the teachings that we've learned in certain religious text or in certain religious institutions, or even in general spirituality and what a lot of people were teaching back in the day. And so even acknowledging and knowing like, okay, yes, this stuff has a lot of strong foundation, but we also have to remember this came from an era where patriarchy was very much alive, where women were still viewed as second class citizens or not even a citizen at all. They were just property. And so even coming into a lot of these practices, just acknowledging that and knowing, okay, we can take what works and then it's actually okay to find the new things that work even better without it being judgment. Yeah, so I really love that you brought that up because that is important as I'm learning my own spirituality is the amount of times from even fear-based, which is why I created Fearless Spirit, was all these fear-based teachings around astrology, around spirituality, around all these things where there's a lot of you can't, that's not how it works, it's not possible, be fearful of, this is the end of this. And so even in that, your friend taking it to the next level, your mentor taking it to the next level and going, how do we actually apply this more into the 5D world? And so I think that was really awesome that you brought that up. And so I'm curious for you because you did in 2020. And actually, I think that's when I did. I think I was one of your first natal chart readings when you were first
Yes,
certified.
you were,
You
for
mentioned
sure.
that. I was like, this is so fun because I could honestly, I couldn't tell. But you've been such a great professional your whole life that anytime you learn anything new, you can't even tell. You just pick it up. So one of the things that I really found really powerful was just getting to know my real base of who I was as a whole being. When you did my first reading, I went back and listened to it several times. I actually just refound it again the other day, and I'm like, oh, there it is. But I want to talk about too, in this, like learning how to let go. And I love that even though there are some aspects that are very westernized or very patriarchal, you still find a way to bring in your amazing feminine goddess energy into it and to look at it from a more divine light. So I love that about you. Is talk to them now about why it's important once you get your basic foundation, your natal chart read. Why is it important then to then have a progressive chart read? Like, what is that about? So explain to them. I know what it's about because I've experienced it and changed my whole trajectory, but why is that important? And I want to say, just because as people are telling me, oh, I'm this, they're very held and fixed on what they were when they were born. And I've been really like honored and been sharing your link to with everyone because I'm like, oh no, that's not who you are really anymore. Surprise. And so just really identifying and explaining and identifying why that's to be true, why that's true that we may not necessarily be who we were born originally. And to understand why it's important to know that about yourself as you're progressing through life.
Thank you for this question. This is an awesome question. So I think the most simple way to explain the difference between like a natal chart reading and a progress chart reading is that when we are looking at the natal chart, we are looking at a snapshot of the sky when you took your first breath in this incarnation. So it's a picture. A progress chart or secondary progressions, which is the technique that we use, it's like pressing play on that snapshot, and we're seeing how the planets have moved. And in progressed astrology, the sun moves 1 degree each year. So when we're looking at a progressed chart, we are looking at, like, depending on how old you are, let's say like you're 40 years old, we will be looking at the ephemeris, which is that table of where all the planets are each day. Since the sun in progressive astrology moves 1 degree per day, we're going to be looking at 40 days after you were born. That's your progress chart. So it looks, and just like zooming out, your natal chart is, like I said, the snapshot of the sky, the day you were born, the moment you took your first breath. And we're looking at if we're going to use like technological language, we're looking at your factory settings. We're looking at, what you chose to come into this life with, right? So it's like the base energies that we're working with. And they're all potentials. They're all potentials. It's not like this is going to happen to you, right? Like I don't use astrology to be like predictive in that way, like predicting the future. I find it to be like archetypally predictive, right? So we know the spectrum or spectra of energy that we're working with, right? And a spectrum has a high expression and a low expression. So when we're looking at a progress chart, we're looking at the bigger overarching themes of how your energy is unfolding over your lifetime. And we're looking at what it means when the planets change signs and directions. And so when I'm doing a reading for somebody, I'm focusing on the 5 personal planets in addition to the progressed ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and IC. So yeah, it's a big deal when your sun sign moves into another sign, and your depending on how long you live, but on average, it just depends on where the sun was born, where the sun was when you were born, right? Like if your sun was at 28 degrees of whatever sign, let's say of Scorpio, like you're going to change sun signs soon, right? Because you're at the very late degrees. But some people, they're born at 0 degrees, right? So they're going to be in that sun sign for 30 years. So it's a big deal when the sun changes signs, because, this is where you shine from a 3D perspective. It's your main self-identification and traits. It's what's comfortable and feels good for you. It represents your self-development through your life. And what feels good for you changes. It changes with the sun sign. So it's really, really important to have a reading like this or have it incorporated into an astrology reading. And I learned so much about myself. I mean, I always have to do these things with my own chart and my own planets and have the experience of like, oh my God, everything is lining up. The progressed moon is like a huge deal. I always save that for like the last part of the reading for progressed chart reading, because a progressed lunation cycle tells you so much about how your creative energy and emotional energy is like unfolding. I mean, it's so juicy, it's so on point, and it helps you yeah, just really get an understanding, but an embodied understanding of like who you are now, right? And it doesn't mean that your natal placements don't matter anymore. Like those things are still your core, but we evolve over time. We refine over time, you know. And some people don't evolve. There's that too, but I
Yeah.
find that anybody who's like drawn to me is like very much about spiritual evolution and
I was
and
gonna
and
say,
spiritual growth, yeah,
mhm.
and healing.
Yeah. I literally, from the moment I met you, I've always just felt and seen you as this very deeply embodied, wise person
Oh,
with a lot of wisdom. And so, because I know you like this and you just keep expanding, what was for me? I'm just curious for myself, for yourself, when you did for your own progress chart, and what was like kind of aha for you as far as like knowing why you shifted gears or why you were really interested, and then also what was like an awakening for you even when you did your own progress chart and you looked at it, where were you kind of like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even realize this, and it helped to shift your own perception of your life and really put you more on the trajectory of where you're at now.
well, The one thing that I can think of on the top of my head or off the top of my head was when my progressed sun returned when it was at 29 degrees of I'm trying, was it my progressed sun or maybe it was my progressed moon? I can't, I'm looking. But anyway, whatever it was something, there was something in my progressed chart that was indicating that this time in June of it was like 2019 or 2018, um, there was a big shift for me. And I wish this was in front of me right now. But basically, I was at Spirit Weavers in Oregon on Takelma territory. And this is a gathering for female-bodied beings, you know, and there were so many witches there. It was so amazing. I was leading jade egg workshops for both sessions, and I was living in a tent, and I was swimming naked in the river at the creek, and like this is maybe an overshare, but like free bleeding, right? Like
On my
like
show
I
as
was
well.
just like around, just being around other female-bodied beings and being away from the male gaze. It was so healing and liberating, and everybody there was so magical. Like everybody there was a medicine woman. Everybody there had like very, very powerful magic. And I met so many incredible people. And at the same time, I had like basically a door was shut on a long-term female friendship, somebody that I had known since I was like 9 years old, who I considered to be one of my very, very best friends. And like while I was at this event, the door was shut on this relationship, right? Like I was clear, like, wow, this is over. And this is not what I thought it was. And what was so great was that I was surrounded by so many amazing women that I was like, you know what? I'm in a good place, actually. Like, I have amazing people in my life. And even though this door is closing now, the door is opening to so many other amazing folks. And so it was like a time where I had to give up maybe some like childhood fantasies, like I let go of some naivete around some relationships that were not aligned anymore, and it was really hard for me. There was a lot of grief around it. But what I realized, because it took me a while to process all of it, was that, you know what, we'd been moving away from each other for quite a while now, and I was still like putting this person up on a pedestal when really they didn't deserve to be there, you know? So that was definitely like a milestone moment, like a major turning point in my life. And, to just let go of that and be like, you know what, that's where not everybody is meant to travel with you your whole life, right? Some people just travel with you for a very short time, or a long time, and then it's over, and that was like a long time we traveled together. But as I look back and processed and integrated the whole experience, I realized, oh my God, we've actually been moving away from each other for a long time. So that was like, I don't remember, 2019, 2018, but it showed up in my chart. It showed up in my reading, and I was like, God, this is crazy. So that was the main thing that jumped out at me about all of that. But um yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but there
That's
were
okay.
multiple instances where I was like, wow, the movements of the moon, the other planets really spoke to major milestones in my life. And so I was blown away. I blew my own mind doing my own chart, and then I couldn't wait to like give this reading to other people. And I love giving this reading to other people because people go nuts. They're like, oh my God, this lines up with when this happened, when I moved or when I decided I was gonna like drop out of grad school, like stuff like that, or this is like when, my parent passed away. Yeah, big moments in your life. They all show up in the chart. It's wild. It's so wild. I hope that like gives you an
Oh,
answer to the
totally does. Yeah, no,
question.
because I know, and I totally didn't give you that. I totally didn't give you that opportunity to look at your chart, but and I think you totally answered it beautifully because it was like, holy crap! I actually this was in my chart, and that was kind of what was interesting for me because when you did my progressive chart, what was interesting is you know me, and I've been literally interested in sexuality since I was a kid, and
Hmm.
not just in a unhealthy way. Like I've truly been interested in even the science of it, what makes people tick. Just
Yes.
I always thought that somehow, some way I was going to end up going to school and becoming like a science sexual research or something like the Kinsey Institute or something, because I was just so incredibly intrigued by the physical body and then how the emotional. And so I was really just very focused on that most of my life. And I was a massage therapist where I just saw where a lot of people, as we started for many years, massage therapists, I got into sex, love, relationship coaching because I had so many clients whom, when I'm doing body work with them, and I primarily work on female bodies only. Every once in a while, I have a male that I'll say yes to if they're in full integrity. And it's not to say because I love men, you love men. It's just that in my work, I'm very particular about and discerning of who I work with because I do only work with people who are self-responsible and are willing to do the
So
deep
good.
dive and do the work. And because I'm not here to do it for them, I'm here just to give them the tools and they got to pick it up and they got to fix it themselves so that it's
Hmm.
long lasting and sustainable. And so as I would work on these female bodies and we were doing these deep releasing in their hip areas, in their pelvic areas, lower back, they would start having all these memories and these rememberings and these emotions that come up around relationship, around their own beliefs of their bodies, around their own um, sexuality, and even issues they were having. And they would even start asking, like, is this normal? Is that normal? And so I'm kind of like you, I follow the thread. And so after so many people continuously bringing these things up, because I also realized that I created such a professional, safe space for my clients that they felt comfortable opening up in this way, having these conversations with me, knowing they were safe, that there was always going to be boundaries, wonderful, healthy boundaries held in that space, and that they could verbally express what's happening for them as we are releasing their muscles and their ligaments even. And so it was interesting just to know like that deep connection between the physical body, emotional body, and the energetic body, and having so many somatic emotional releases. And so somatic, for those of you who don't know, somatic is the body. So soma means body. So when you say somatic emotional, it's the body's emotional release. So it's not your mind emotional release, it's your actual release of your body's memories and emotions that have been stuck in there. So just to give you guys kind of that little background in case you don't know that. And so that would happen. And I very much started studying more and more, became a holistic nutrition coach, and then became a sex love relationship coach. And the reason I say all this to share this with you, because you already know this, but I want to explain this for the audience to know why this is so impactful. After probably like for the last 3-4 years, I felt like the thing that I was very impassioned about, that I was really good at helping people and really healing, like really helping them figure out how to love themselves fully and to come into this deeply embodied state and to heal their woundings in their sexuality, it wasn't feeling authentic to me anymore. There was something missing, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I was struggling. I was even struggling to keep clients because whatever it was, there was something missing. And I felt like, who am I? Because I don't even feel like I'm really impassioned about this anymore. And when you did my progressive chart, everything in my chart was so different. And when you did my natal chart, and I know you don't have in front of you, but I remember the basics, but primarily what you showed me was my natal chart was almost all the houses were in Scorpio. So like my whole who I was in this life when I was born was someone who was sexually playful, into sexuality, sexually curious, sexually educated, sexually empowered. Like it was all like I started laughing, like, no wonder I'm into this, because literally my chart was you had told me that majority of my planets and all that were all in the same house of Scorpio. And literally, and it even does, my chart looks like a little arrow. It's like the line just goes and just points basically, I think, at Scorpio, and everything was in there. It
Yes, you
was
have a
all about,
stellium in Scorpio. I
yeah,
should
and it
pull
was
up
like
your chart right
all
now,
it
actually.
was like all about sexuality on so many levels. And then you did my progressive chart, and hardly anything was in that anymore. It was
Mm-hmm.
actually about spirituality. It was about higher conscious thinking. It was about being at this higher 5D dimension level. It was even about who I had in my life, who I was surrounding myself with. Now were only people that were at the same level in their own unique way. They were in their higher conscious level, even to the point of I had been struggling with doing some partnerships with some people and not knowing why I was so reluctant. And you even said, you will not put your name, this is your word. She said, you will not put your name into any kind of partnership, romantic, business at all, unless they are fully at the same level and integrity and like in alignment with you in that same evolved level. And it was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I can't move forward, because these people are amazing, but they're not quite at that level yet. And I know this. That's why I've been hesitating. And then your next thing you said to me was basically I was meant to work with people in that were leaders and creatives and help them find their own spiritual empowerment and go into their own leadership. And it was like in that moment, I literally heard, you're supposed to work with entrepreneur women and help them embrace their intuitive abilities and to combine that now in the way the world is changing to actually come into this intuitive leadership, which is, we'll talk towards the end about how that bloomed our program, because that's kind of what started it. Was literally, I wrote in my notes, which I also don't have my thing in front of me, super prepared today, but hey, I look great.
You do look great.
uh, I just have to know, because usually I record this since it's audio only in my robe and chillax. But I was finally so crystal clear. Like it just was like, oh, aha. No wonder why. It's not that I don't still love sexuality. And what I mean by sexuality is, right, is our creative life force, our eros, our actual being that is us as a body, mind, and soul, where pleasure is a catalyst of healing, where pleasure is a catalyst of nourishment and healing. It's not just a way to, for like many people, when they hear that, they just think, oh, getting off. No, sexuality is really about you embodying yourself as a female body that can be fully empowered and in pleasure and feeling her body and actually owning your creativity, because it's the same area of your body that's also your sexuality. So you can't have both running if you're blocked. And so even though that was still important to me, it wasn't where I was going with my clients. And I even noticed the shift of that. My clients were moving out of toxic relationships. And as they were healing themselves, their abilities, their gifts, their spiritual gifts were coming online. And now they're saying, oh my gosh, what do I do with all this stuff? What's happening to me? And when you read my progressive chart, I was like, duh, this is why. Because I'm now here in this level, because I'm about to be 50 this year, is I'm in that new realm for myself, where what's more important is I am deeply embodied in my sexuality. I don't have to go anywhere, grow in that. And so what's happening is now is my spirituality, my intuitive abilities, my spiritual abilities, those have been coming online. And those are important for me, not only to be, and they've been online, but they're really like, over the last, like even the month, they've just kind of like gone on to superpower kind of level.
Yes, there's been an explosion.
Right. And it's because literally that started the moment you did my progressive chart reading. And that was when everything just made so much sense, because it's almost as if it gave me permission to finally be who I felt I was, but I was still holding on to who I thought I was supposed to be. And I realized that not that anymore. I'm this person, but I wasn't allowing myself to fully embrace this person. And even with that, you informed me that I have 3 more years of a shedding period. So, and that's also happening. There's a lot of truths coming to light, like you said, a lot of friendships or situations ending. And with that, our new doors opening. And so even though it's a shedding period and some things might be uncomfortable or sad, there are new things that are opening, because I'm able to say, okay, well, this is shedding period. So of course this is happening. So just lean into it and let it go, because that's what it's supposed to be doing right now. And I feel like that, and that's what I wanted to interview on this, because I think it's so powerful. And I don't think people realize maybe you don't have everything predicted. And even to you being able to tell like past life wise, where my wounded healer was, that most of it was past life. And if I could heal the past life part of it, it didn't even matter what was going on. This life was just going to fall into place now. So even give myself permission. I didn't have to figure out, well, when did that happen in this life? How is that playing out? What's the story of that? It
Right.
wasn't even there anymore. It was more like, oh, right. Well, if this happened in past life and there's no need to go into a story. There's just a need to let it go, heal it, and move forward. And so, yeah. So I just wanted to share that for people. Like, this is why this really, for me, just kind of knocked my socks off.
Thank
And
you for that.
yeah, absolutely. Because
I
it was
love
from
this.
there when
I'm
I
gonna
came over.
I'm gonna have to like use this as a testimonial
I'll
for
send you
the
the recording.
So actually what I did for you was a starlight session, which uses secondary progressions
Okay.
as part of it. So basically it's like, what do the stars have in store for you in terms of the gifts that you are sharing with the world in business, right? So that's why we went through, what business relationships are aligned for you at this time, right? Who are the people that are going to be good for you to collaborate with? Who are good mentors for you? Who are you collaborating with behind the scenes? And then, like you were speaking to, who are the people that are good for you to have public contracts with, right? Like I'm collaborating with this person in public, right? They need to have these qualities in order for it to feel aligned, right? And you got to see like, wow, like no wonder these collabs didn't happen because in order for me to do this, like these things would have needed to be in place and they weren't. Like now I know why that this project didn't go through because it wasn't aligned energetically. So thank you. Thank you for that plug. I love these
Yeah.
readings. I love them. I mean, and I always want people to have a life path astrology reading first before I do any other readings, just because I think it's good to know your natal chart first. Like, what are you working with?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And because that's a lot. That's a lot of
It's a
information
lot,
that
but
comes
you don't
through.
know where you're going if you don't know where you're from.
Right. Exactly. Yeah,
And
you
so I
got to
really
know
do
what you're
agree with
working
that.
with.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because if you hadn't read my natal chart, and you did it way back when you read my progressive chart, because I had the natal chart reading and I remembered so much and I had the recording from you, I was able to review that and then compare. And so I saw from your progressive chart reading how much I've shifted according to that. But because I knew where my base was, and it made sense. It made sense for me who I was in my life, so that if there was any doubt about the journey I was taking, I had kind of like permission to just love myself because that's where I was from anyway. This was preordained by the stars. So it was kind of like this ability to let go of thinking something was wrong or whatever the case may be, because according to my charts, that's who I was. That's who I was born in to be. But as I got older, that progressive chart was like, hey, but you're not that anymore. Now you're this. And I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. And it really made sense for me, especially acknowledging and validating for me what I was thinking and feeling and why it now made sense, because I'm like, why is it this doesn't feel right anymore? Why? And so it was so powerful. And I really appreciated that reading. And yes, the Starlight reading. So yeah, I loved it. I do highly recommend everyone get that reading because
All
that
right.
changed everything. So
You're
okay.
gonna trip. You're gonna trip out right now because I
Okay.
just pulled up
Uh,
your reading,
oh
like my
goodness.
notes from your reading.
Okay.
And so remember we were talking about the progress lunation cycle. So basically, like the moon, the progress moon, like goes around the zodiacal wheel like every 30 years, roughly 28.5, 30 years. And we are in each phase of the moon, full moon, balsamic moon, new moon, all the phases. We're in those phases for like 3.5 years. And I'm looking at your chart right now, and I'm looking at my notes, and what it's telling me is that um, you just entered your balsamic moon phase 2 days ago. July 15th, 2024 is starting a new balsamic moon phase where a massive amount of shedding is taking place and letting go. And you're deepening your studies, potentially, yeah, into the occult, right? Into intuition, psychic abilities, receiving information in nonlinear ways, right? It's like it's very similar to like a 12th house transit. The 12th house is like the house of the unseen, the house
Mm,
of soul contracts and spirituality.
yeah,
So we knew this was coming up,
we did, but
and
I didn't realize that it started 2 days ago.
it started 2 days ago.
I'm not going to share too much of personal because it's works, but and I know what happened
Yes,
2 days ago.
yes. This is what I'm saying.
And
Like you're gonna
it's
trip out.
not making sense now. Oh my gosh. I'm getting chills now because
I know.
wow. Wow.
July
So
15th.
I'll let the audience know. Basically, I woke up feeling really just unsettled and cranky. And I was talking to Heather, and she started asking some questions, and some things got really uncovered and revealed, and was like, no wonder I feel this way. And this huge like threshold that I've been holding just burst. No more. I'm done. I hit my limit. It's complete. And I immediately address the situation. And it is drastically changing as of 2 days ago. It drastically changed. Like the threshold got hit, the wall was smashed into my face. And so literally this whole shit, this, excuse me, I'm going to say this whole shit show that I've been dealing
Mm-hmm.
with is
Mm-hmm.
about to be shifted for me. And I'm removing myself from a very, uh, a difficult situation that was never my situation to be in anyway. So, but with love of the people that are involved, it was, yeah, that is one, and that is a huge, huge part of my life right now. So that is, it's blowing me away that started 2 days ago, the day I woke up feeling like this.
I know. I'm telling you, astrology is so amazing. It's so amazing. As above, so below, girl.
Woo!
For
Yes,
real.
agree.
Well, so you were in that third quarter moon phase um since November 8th of 2020. So that phase in the progress lunation cycle is really like in line with the autumn equinox energy. So it's a time where like, when we think about the fall, it's like the leaves are starting to turn colors and fall off the trees, right? And we're in a process of letting go of what we're not taking into the new cycle, right? Into winter, which is like the void of creation, and we're resting and dreaming and doing a lot of ancestor work. But in that third quarter moon phase, like I said, which is associated with the autumn equinox, this is like it's a time where like you've already passed the full moon phase, like you're past like the peak of the cycle where the spotlight is on you and it's almost like a frenetic sort of chaotic like pace. In the third quarter moon, you're like, you're starting to repackage your skills and the talents that you've created, right? You're rebranding and you're starting to prepare for an end of a cycle. And so that's what you've been in for the past 3 years, since
Yeah.
November 8th,
And
2020. And then
yeah.
now you are like, whoo, now it's like intense shedding, like for the next 3 years.
Oh my gosh, and does it feel like that? But I'm, because you know me, I am who I am. I'm like, okay, bring it on. I'm like,
Yes, you
I'm jumping off
flow.
that cliff
You flow.
without my parachute, knowing I'll somehow grow wings.
Yes.
I'm just always like diving headlong, like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So, oh my gosh, that is mind blowing. So there you go. That's exactly why these progressive charts are so important once you have your natal chart, because I do think it's important to know your foundation first so
Yes.
that you know then where you're going from there. And that is just so crazy. And that's actually so funny. That's how we started collaborating, because when you did this
Mhm.
for me, then I think it was like 1 or 2 days later, I came over to give you a quantum massage.
Yes, which was
And I
amazing.
was literally telling you about all the things that came to realization after that reading. And you and I both are looked at each other and said, "Oh my gosh, we got to do something with this. We should do a workshop on this. This would be
Hmm.
so phenomenal." So then we did the workshop and it was really great. And we're like, there's so much information we can't even cover in 2 hours. Oh my gosh, this should be a program.
I know.
And we literally just like from literally having conversations while massaging you, doing some healing work on you, you doing that chart on me, boom, all the things we realize people have been asking for or that have been struggling with or that is starting to come up more and more even in the themes. You're like, oh my gosh, why aren't we doing something together around this? And so that's how we started doing the intuitive, the recognizing strength, or what was it, releasing fear and recognizing strength workshop
Hmm.
series. And and it's like total just introductory 2 hour workshop for the intuitive leadership and just kind of dipping your toes to find out like some basics about ancestral healing, because it's astrology, it's about the ancestral healing that needs to take place, it's about dealing with your own trauma, recognizing what the different spiritual abilities are and how you naturally have them and how you can apply them to your leadership skills and also in just your everyday life, starting to embrace that. And then we realized there's other things like plant medicine and all that that can't be covered in 2 hours and why it's important. Matter of fact, I take a microdose of psilocybin every morning with lion's mane and niacin. So it actually vastly improves your brain. It brings deep sharpness in your cognitive abilities and it does new neuroplasticity. And that's probably why this all came online because I've been doing it for the last 2, 3 weeks. And my brain's like,
Right.
this is not, it's almost as if, like my friend said a long time ago, she was doing the trials on the ketamine therapy. She said, it's like I got a pair of prescription glasses for my brain, and suddenly they came on and I could see clearly through my brain.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so just knowing how important all of this is. So that's why we came up with the 7 week program, the Everyday Oracle, that's going to be starting in September. So excited.
So
Excited.
exciting.
So any of you that are interested in this I will have the links in the show notes. We do have how many more workshops? It's the same workshop, but we're doing different dates just to allow people for the summer to find a date that works for them while
Yeah,
they're on
we have several
stay.
more
We
workshops in the
do.
series. We
Yeah.
have one coming up on the 24th.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it.
Yes.
There's so much good information that we have packed into there, and there's so much more. And Tara is so gifted and has such a she's so talented and has an embodied passion for what she does. And I think you would say the same thing about me,
Absolutely.
right? You know,
Absolutely.
we have this like really awesome mutual respect and which is wonderful relationship. So it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to collaborate, and it's been fun to really let go of that narrative of like partnering with people is so hard and it's such a heavy lift and like I have to work with this person because I need this from them. There's you know what I mean? Like that's an old
Yeah.
story. Like you can partner up with people where you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I get to work with this person.
And
I'm
it's
so
fun.
lucky. It's
Yeah.
so fun. It doesn't feel like work." Like that's
Hmm.
what we have going on and I really believe that that's come into our experience because of the work that we've done.
Right. And it's like literally all of this just downloaded
It
because
came
we
in
just do
so
this work.
fast.
It was like, phew, we're like, where did that come from? But that was, I do believe it's like you said, it's the work that we do. And it's not just the work that we do for others, it's the work that you and I have been doing on ourselves
Yeah,
as
that's what I mean.
right. Like, absolutely. We've been doing it for ourselves, on ourselves, supporting each other in our own work. And then also hearing it from your clients, my clients, and also just even seeing how much your astro-ancestral collective that you have. So it's for those of you who are interested in that, by the way, I will put the link for you to join that if you'd like. It's a low cost membership that actually gives you guest teachers every month. So you get to be exposed to a ton of amazing different practitioners from all walks of life that are female bodied for you to just really expand. I mean, I love the list of the experts you bring on and just the things that people are exposed to that some of us don't. I mean, there's some things that came on that you had experts on them like that exists. That is cool. I want to watch that.
And
So,
you're one of those guest
and
experts.
to them,
You were a teacher
one
in the
of them.
beginning of the year. So yeah, Tara's workshop is in there. It's in our resource library. And thank you for talking about the membership. I love it. So,
I love
just
it.
for people to know, we have two live events each month. We have a pleasure practice and dance party on each new moon or near the new moon so that we can like be together. It's crystal egg or jade egg optional, which is my favorite, self-healing tool for embodied transformation. And that's like a whole other episode of your podcast for us to talk about
Yes.
that. But using that, engaging with that tool is totally optional.
Can you
You can still
explain
get
for some
benefits.
people because not everyone knows what a jade egg is. I've actually run to a lot of women who do not know what that is. If you can just do a super brief intro what it is, just so they know what that is, because it is very powerful. I also use jade egg and it is, yeah, it's powerful.
It is extremely powerful. So the jade egg is an ancient Taoist practice that's been around for thousands of years. And what I love about it, just like, like zooming out and giving a broad overview, is that it gives female bodied beings, because not everybody with a vagina identifies as a woman,
Yes.
um, like a practical process and a container for doing very deep healing work, for transmuting trauma, and also finding their voice and
Mhm.
finding their confidence and becoming more orgasmic and just basically like finding their power. Because the jade egg, so the original, like I called the jade egg the OG, um jade has like all these amazing properties, but the egg itself is a polished piece of jade shaped into the shape of an egg, and it's worn inside the vagina. And, this practice is not for everybody, okay?
Mhm.
Like some people, and this is why the practice is so potent and relevant at this time, because so many people, especially female bodied beings, have been so traumatized over generations and generations. We're not in our bodies. We're basically
Right.
floating heads, okay? And so what this does is that it brings like awareness to your pelvic landscape, to your root. Um, when the jade egg is sitting inside of you, and I always recommend that folks use a drilled egg. It has a hole in it for you to put dental floss or like, medical grade string or silk string. You tie like a triple knot so that you can remove it easily. Um, when it's inside of you, it's sitting right up by your cervix. And what
Mhm.
people don't really understand and know is that like your cervix is a portal and an oracle. And it's also where the vagus nerve, which is how the body communicates with the brain, it's where the vagus nerve terminates. And so engaging with the jade egg practice, you are squeezing your pelvic floor, you're squeezing above the egg, around the egg, below the egg. You're basically waking up this part of your body and you're bringing your entire nervous system online. It's like being plugged into a wall. It's like you were this appliance that was never given any electricity. It's like you plug into your power source and you're like, whoa, like where have I been? Like, what have I been
Yeah.
doing? Like it completely shifts everything. And yeah, I mean, there's so many physiological benefits to this practice. There are so many psycho-spiritual benefits to this practice. It's not for everybody. Not everybody's ready to, build a relationship with their body like this, right? They're very, very scared of female sexuality, sexual power. This is like a touchy, sensitive topic, but also there's so much sexual trauma in the collective, in our bodies, from mom, grandma, all of our maternal ancestors. It's really scary to go there. you know? So not everybody's ready and not everybody's going to do it in this lifetime. But I know that the people who come to me, you know, there's a reason why, right? Because they decided, like whether it's an astrology reading or, you know, working with the jade egg or the crystal egg, they're here to do some of that work because so much of the trauma can actually live inside of the tissues of the vagina. We store like the cervix, whether you it was consensual or not, the cervix remembers everything that penetrates you.
Mhm.
And different in the Taoist tradition, different regions of the vagina correspond to different organs, and those organs are related to different emotions. So it's very, very deep healing work. It's very, very powerful work. It needs to be done in a safe container. I always recommend that people book a session with me and that I get to guide them through it instead of like having to do it yourself. Because if you're looking at instructions, you know, it kind of takes you out of it. I think it's really nice to have a sister, a trusted sister, to hold the space and guide you through a session. It's extremely powerful and definitely was a turning point in my healing journey. And you cannot do this ancestral healing work without addressing the physical dimension of ancestral trauma or intergenerational trauma. Because if you're just reading a book, guess what? That trauma is going to move to your emotional body or it's going to
Mhm.
move into the physical body, right? Or if you're just doing physical healing, right? You know, it'll shift to another dimension. It will move to your mind and your mind won't stop churning and burning, right? And
Yeah.
you'll be mentally exhausted. So my approach to ancestral healing has astrology and pleasure mixed in because it needs to be holistic. It needs to address you on a mental level, emotional level, spiritual level, and a physical level. So that's why I'm like a big proponent of it. But, you know, it's not for everybody, and I'm not for everybody, but that's okay.
Oh, totally okay.
Right?
And
So I'm good
absolutely.
with that. That's fine.
That's why we attract who we attract to work with us. Yeah. And it's so true because when I first started doing Jade Egg was many years ago. And I originally was introduced to it by a Tantrika teacher. She's still going strong somewhere and amazing woman.
Was it
She's been,
Saida? Saida
no,
Desile?
no, she's a woman that I can't remember her name right now. I'll think of it. Anyway, she's a friend of mine and she was deeply like she was like seriously like super successful corporate CEO woman who had this massive awakening and then she just like completely quit her job and went deep into women coaching and tantra and so and the correct pronunciation is tantra but most people don't know that so I'm saying tantra.
Right.
So she introduced me to her eggs and I actually the jade egg I got from her is a different kind. What we got from our schooling was actually a nephrite jade, which I recommend for newbies to get that because it is much stronger of a jade. Because the other
Yes,
one, I
nephrite jade. Yes,
yeah, the other
absolutely.
jade is great. However, I sucked the energy dry and my green egg turned into an almost fully white egg. So that one,
Whoa.
yeah, I'll have to show you someday. And my naphrite, it is still dark green and smooth as can be. But the other one, it's still smooth, but it's like literally got big veins of white in it and barely has green in it now. So you want you want that stronger jade to hold up for you as far as the energy goes because it does energetically your body it will absorb the energy of that stone as needed. And so I also recommend for anyone who has strong energy never to use a rose quartz egg. I rose quartz shatters around me, so you do not want to put things, so be careful, right? That's the other thing is be very careful about getting these gem eggs because you need to know what gem you're putting in your body based on your own energy source. So that's what I think and that's the other reason why I think it's really important for you to work with someone like yourself that's an expert in it and to learn not only how to use it, but then also what kinds are the most safest for you to use and what effects they'll have. I had a woman one time tell me that she wanted to buy her teenage daughter an obsidian egg. And I said, oh, we probably don't want to do that. And the reason why is
It's so
obsidian,
strong. It's
it's
so
so
strong.
strong and it really pulls the negative energies out of the body. And I said, I explained to her, I said, she's a teenager and she's not emotionally equipped yet to fully handle some of the things that may come up and out with with the obsidian is going to like just rip it out of her, so to speak. So we
Pretty
want to
much.
start with
It's very
something
powerful.
gentle. It's very powerful. So I explained to her, and so we went through, and I really just turned her on to a nephrite jade, which is a really good one to start with, or even like you said, the crystal eggs. They now have ones that are just the was it the basilic glass, which are really strong and tend not to shatter or break. So those are really good and healthy.
Hmm.
And also the proper care and how to use it well. And it does it. And for me personally, when I was doing it every day, I had some major emotional releases back. This is back in my early 30s that I started really using it on a regular basis. It's almost 20 years ago now. And so for me, it was a profound experience and completely shifted not only my body, but my emotional body big time. So I love that you incorporate that. And I also love that you educate women on and female bodies in particular, and the ones who are ready for this work, that is not just some fad, it is an ancient practice. And there is a lot that goes with it. So thanks for explaining that, because I think I hear a lot of people say jade egg, and a lot of people don't understand what it is, and they also don't know how powerful it is. So really understanding how powerful it is and why it's important to work with someone who has had training in it to get started, so that you have that support if anything comes up.
Yeah, it's an amazing tool. It's arguably the most powerful tool in my self-healing
You actually just
toolbox.
reminded me, it's probably time for me to start using mine on a regular basis again.
Well, yeah, considering that you have just
My,
entered your balsamic moon phase, I
yeah.
mean, things are dying off.
Yep.
It's going to
Yep.
be
So
three
this is going to help
years.
free it up, and it's going to also help support what's coming in. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
I
Oh, I'm
love it.
excited for you. I'm
I'm
excited
excited
for
for
you. And I'm
you.
excited for us.
Yeah, I'm totally excited for us. I think this was great. I don't want to go too long because I want to, of course, make a bite size of the session for those who are listening. So I think we kind of hit our time, if I'm noticing. But I am so grateful that you came on this call today and shared your amazing wisdom and really introduced people maybe to something they have never heard of before. And I'm really just excited. I'm excited about what's coming up for you. I'm excited about what we're doing together. And I hope that we just keep working together, because it's great. I love this, and I love our friendship that's been developing more and more since we've gone into our next our next frequency, I would say. You and I kind of
Yes.
hit that frequency at the same time, and it's just been bringing our friendship deeper and deeper, and I'm loving it. So I am deeply in gratitude for you as a colleague, as a friend, and just love you as a person.
I
So
love
thanks
you
for coming here.
too.
I appreciate it. So, for those listening, if they would like to work with you more, I will have it in the show notes. But how do they get in touch with you?
You can go to heatherrebeccawilson.com. All my stuff is there. And then I post, pretty regularly on Instagram. So it's just at Heather Rebecca Wilson. So that's what I would recommend. But yeah, if you are interested in, diving into your unique energetic signature and what you are meant to be doing in this incarnation, especially when it comes to like ancestral healing, cultivating your intuitive abilities. I highly recommend doing a Life Path Astrology reading with me because I'm really looking at the chart through an ancestral healing lens and an energetic spiritual development lens. And I love doing it. It's really fun for me.
I can actually second that. I know you love doing it. I've experienced that with you personally and have witnessed just how jazzed up you are after you do this for other people. So
Fun.
I'm just so grateful and thankful, and thanks for sharing your information. So again, if you didn't get that, it's heatherrebeccawilson.com. You can also find her on Instagram at Heather Rebecca Wilson. And I will put in the show notes as well your Astro-Ancestral Collective information if they would like to sign up for your membership.
Yes, thank
And
you.
it is a low cost, so it's not like
Yes.
it's really great. You're getting really high quality stuff for a very affordable rate. And I don't think you can find this kind of stuff, this kind of information, and these kind of quality teachers at this price anywhere else, to be honest. So I highly encourage you to check it out. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Heather, for coming here and being on the show for me and with me. Until next time, we talk to you soon.
Thank you.